In this video, I will humbly try to explain the teachings of Nisargadatta Maharaj in a simple way. I just read his book, Consciousness and the Absolute, and it completely blew my mind, and I am very excited to talk about it. So, let's get started. So what Maharaj is trying to make us understand is that we were once in moksha or nirvana. We were a part of Brahman, which is the universal consciousness out of which everything arose, out of which this entire world came about. We were part of that absolute truth, and we were everything, and everything was us. We came from that. Now it is important to understand that Brahman, or the state which is achieved after reaching nirvana or moksha, is not a human being. It's not a living organism. Instead, it's a state that one can reach when one gives up everything and attempts to get back into the source. So Maharaj is saying that we were part of that absolute truth, but for some reason we were born in this world as humans, and once we were born as humans, we were given consciousness. Now that consciousness attempts to recognize the body and the mind as its own, which gives rise to the feeling of I am. So at first we were part of everything because we were Brahman, or we were the absolute truth. But once we were born, once consciousness was given to us when we were born, there came a sense of I am. We say that I am this body, this is my life, this is happening to me, I am feeling pain, I am feeling happy, tomorrow I have to go to this place, I am hurting, I am sad. What Maharaj is trying to tell us is to ask ourselves regarding who that I am is. According to Maharaj, we are not the body that we believe we are. We always believe that we are this body, that this life is all that we will ever have, and that it's ours, and that's why we work so hard to create a good life, and we always seek pleasure to make this life as comfortable as possible. But Maharaj is telling us that this is not who we are. We are the Brahman, but we have misidentified ourselves with this body. We are never satisfied in this world, even if we have all the material goods, because we are seeking to connect back with the source, with Brahman, with the absolute truth. But since we do not recognize it, since we do not have this knowledge, we attempt to fulfill our void, our sadness with things from this world, but that void can never be fulfilled by doing, experiencing, or having things in this world. What Maharaj is trying to get at is that we must recognize who we truly are, that we are not this body, that we are not this mind, and that we can do that by constantly asking ourselves, who am I? By constantly asking ourselves, who am I, we can understand that we are not the thoughts and feelings and the events that happen to us. For example, something bad happened to me or something great happened to me. Now I feel happy and sad. But Maharaj is telling me that it's not me who is feeling happy or sad. It's my mind and my body that is feeling happy and sad. We are something that is beyond the body and the mind. The reason we falsely believe that we are the body is because our consciousness has misidentified this body as the truth and the only reality. We have forgotten that we are part of the absolute truth or the Brahman because of Maya or illusion. We have become so invested in this world that we have forgotten that there is something beyond this world. Our condition is like that of a tourist who has visited a foreign country for a vacation, but once he reached that country, he has completely forgotten that he is not a citizen of that land and that one day he must return to his original country. He got so mesmerized by the beauty and the lifestyle and the food that he has completely forgotten that he does not belong there, that he must go back to his own country. Similarly, we have forgotten that we came from Brahman and that we must go back to Brahman. We are just tourists in this material world. This material world is false. The reason we believe that this world exists is because our sense of I am exists. Maharaj tells us that it is our consciousness that gives rise to the feeling of I am, because it identifies with a body. We must go beyond our body and the mind. How do we do that? We can go beyond the body and the mind by constantly asking, who am I? Who is this body? Who is thinking all these thoughts? Who is it that wants to experience pleasure? Who is experiencing the pain right now? Who am I? Why am I thinking like this? Who is it that is thinking? What is it inside me that is experiencing these feelings? Who is it that I am talking with inside myself? We have to reach that. That is the I am. That is our feeling of us. Who is it that believes this body is mine? Who is it that recognizes this body, this world, these possessions as his own? We have to reach that. That is the I amness that Maharaj is talking about. That feeling of I amness is the source of all the problems, because if we identify ourselves as the body, as the mind, we are time bound and we are bound to die, because the body that has been born also has to die. So the only way to get rid of this cycle of birth and death and rebirth and reincarnation is to not be born at all, by reaching the state of the absolute truth or Brahman. And to reach that state, we have to destroy that feeling of I amness. Now it's easier said than done, because everything we do it from the standpoint that we exist. I am this, now I am going to do that. If we kill that feeling of I amness, we do not have anything to hold us to this world. And that is exactly what Maharaj is talking about. If I am not who I am, then who am I? I am nobody. If I am not my name, who am I? If I am not the owner of this vehicle, of this house, then who am I? If I am not what I have experienced, then who am I? If I am not this body, if I am not these thoughts that are coming to my mind right now, then who am I? These are the questions that Maharaj wants us to ask ourselves. Maharaj tells us that in order to reach that I am, we have to meditate on that feeling of I am. We can do that by constantly asking, who is it that is trying to know ourselves? Who is it that is trying to understand the feeling of I am? It's us, right? We are the ones who is trying to know ourselves. We are the one who is trying to reach that state of Brahman or the absolute truth. So we have to ask ourselves, who is it that is trying to reconnect with the Brahman or the absolute truth? What is it inside of us that is seeking peace? Why do we seek nirvana or moksha in the first place? Who is it that is seeking nirvana or moksha? There is something inside of us that is making us listen to these great saints like Buddha, Nisargadatta Maharaj, Ramana Maharishi, and so many others. Who or what is it inside of us that is making us come to these great people? There is something inside of us that is not in peace, that is always desperate, it is always seeking something that it feels like will fulfill it. We have to find that being inside of us, because the one who is seeking fulfillment is the feeling of I amness that Maharaj is talking about. The I amness wants to be complete by reconnecting with the Brahman, but he doesn't know that the Brahman exists. So he is trying to experience bliss and happiness in this world, but that is not possible, because the only way by which we can experience that bliss again is by reaching moksha or nirvana. As long as the feeling I am exists, we cannot reconnect with the Brahman. We must find out when is it that the feeling of I am came to us for the first time, and we must go back to the source. Once we see that the feeling of I am has been implanted to us by our consciousness, the feeling will go away and we will automatically become the Brahman or achieve moksha. Merely seeing that the feeling of I am is artificial and that it has been planted inside our mind by our consciousness, merely recognizing this fact and experiencing it for ourselves will get rid of the feeling of I am. We will no longer exist if we see that the I amness is not actually what we are, that we are something much larger than the I amness, and that having this feeling of I am actually made us forget that we are part of something much larger, that we were once complete and now we are incomplete because of this feeling of I am. So we must get rid of this feeling of I am as soon as possible. We have to reach the state in which we were before we were born, because before we were born we were a part of Brahman. Only after we were born, consciousness came inside of our body and we falsely misidentified this body as our own. At first we must have the desire to reach moksha or to reach that state, to reach Brahman. But in the final state, we must give up even this desire. We must give up completely the feeling of I am, which can be done by seeing that that's not who we are, that has been artificially planted. The feeling that I exist is not actually true, because the one who believes I exist is the consciousness. It's not me. I am Brahman, we are Brahman, but it is the consciousness that believes that it's the body, and we have misidentified ourselves with the consciousness. We believe that we are the consciousness, and therefore we believe that we are the body and our mind. But we are above our body and the mind. We are even above the consciousness. We are Brahman, and we must go back to Brahman. In order to go back to Brahman, we have to give up the feeling of I amness, and we can do that by killing the ego, by getting rid of the I amness, by dropping our mind completely, by giving up on the feeling that we exist as a body and the mind. Once we recognize that we are not the body, mind, consciousness, that we are not even the feeling of I am, we cease to exist. When the feeling of I am goes away, we do not exist, because everything goes away. The only reason we have our memories and our feelings and thoughts, and we experience pain and pleasure, and we experience time, is because we have a body, mind, and we are physically present in this world. We lay a claim to our body. But once the feeling of I am goes away, who is there that exists? Because somebody exists when even the feeling of I am goes away. We are that somebody. We are the one who existed before we said that this is our body. We are beyond the body. We existed before we had this body, and we must go back to that state by relearning that we are not this body. The moment we get rid of the feeling of I am, we achieve moksha or nirvana. And that is exactly what the sages and the great teachers and saints have been trying to tell us about. That is the truth, that is the Brahman, that is liberation, that is enlightenment, that is where we are all seeking to go. The funny thing is that we cannot reach enlightenment, we cannot reach liberation, we cannot reach Brahman or the absolute truth, because we are already Brahman or the absolute truth. The only reason we feel like we are not is because we have this feeling of I am. The minute we get rid of the I amness, we will re-enter into Brahman, and we will re-achieve moksha and nirvana again. So TLDR, just get rid of the feeling of I amness. That's the whole point. This was my humble attempt at explaining what it is that I understood from reading the book Consciousness and the Absolute by Nisargadatta Maharaj. I highly recommend all of you to read that book if you are a seeker of truth and liberation and enlightenment. It is one of the most insightful book that I have ever read. Thank you and have a nice day.